Welcome to the latest edition of Northern Engineers Power Talks. Today we have the pleasure of speaking to Jude Knight, who's Head of Low Carbon Skills at Cogent Skills. They're a Northwest-based organisation, employer-led. They're a specialist in science-based industries driving the UK's industrial green clean energy transition. Welcome, Jude. Can I just start by asking you a little bit more about your role at Cogent and exactly what you do, just a bit more of an expansion on that.
Yes, certainly. So I head up all the work around skills for clean energy transition, so for clean growth. So as we know, energy security has become really a big thing since the invasion of Ukraine. There is also much more emphasis now on science-based industries to adapt to climate change. So the frequency of storms and flooding and drought, as we had this summer, really impact on business continuity. And then as a whole, the science industry needs to decarbonize. And all of this is going to take people with the right skills. So my job is to look across all those industries, the emerging industries, the traditional industries, and understand what skills people will need to acquire in order to make sure that UK industry decarbonizes, is climate resilient, and the new technologies that are coming through, things like hydrogen, carbon capture, some of those that are rising in influence, things like biomethane, that they have the right skilled workforce in order to optimize their opportunities.
Great. Thank you. Do you think the UK is still one of the leading players in green energy transition, or has it fallen behind a bit? And also, as a supplementary, do you think we should be one of the leading players, or do you think we should just, more of a joined up effort with the rest of the Western world?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a skills specialist rather than an economic specialist. But I think due to sort of industry is very much influenced by geopolitical events that happen, and I think across the whole world really, there has been over recent months a bit of a drawback on some of the sort of the net zero transition. In the UK, there are political influences which perhaps are not quite so keen on some of the sort of the net zero arguments that have gone before about climate change, but are still very much pro economic growth and making sure that people have good jobs. And I think that's the message here, is that this transition is supporting people to move into jobs that are well paid, that are sustainable, and also go towards reducing sort of climate change, which again has that effect on climate resilience for UK employers.
So what sort of what's the average sort of future employee you'd be helping to train?
A lot of those job roles that are going to need upskilling and reskilling are those that are already in the workforce. You've got people that are in traditional fuel-based roles. They may well transition to roles in things like hydrogen, and so that's a big piece of my work, is understanding what is that delta, what is the training need for people that are perhaps process engineers. They're already well qualified, worked in the industry for many years, but perhaps in a different fuel source, using a different fuel source than perhaps some of the new ones coming through. So if they're using gas, for example, to fire furnaces to make glass at the moment, what are they going to need to be trained in? What are they going to need to know to be safe, compliant, and able to do their jobs working with hydrogen fueling their furnaces to make glass?
So do you think there's going to be a crossover into the domestic energy market with hydrogen as well, or is it primarily industrial?
At the moment, all that government is signalling is that it's going to be industrial, but I know that the government still has to really make its mind up on what it's going to do in terms of hydrogen for heating. But of course, if hydrogen for heating comes, then there will need to be quite a large scale upskilling and reskilling. of the workforce, of the traditional gas workforce, in order to optimize that. And when you think of what it takes to get gas from source and into your house, there's a whole load of things, including meters and regulators and all sorts of things. So that will be a big piece of work, and will hopefully keep me well employed if that does come down the line.
So how do you see things developing for your organisation within the next, say, 5 years?
For my organisation?
Yeah. And the industry, the wider industry
The
as well,
wider
so
industry.
Cogent and influences in the wider industry.
Yeah, so when it comes to the work that I'm doing, it is very much influenced by government policy, and I don't think anybody would disagree that it's not gone at the pace that we would have liked it to have gone at. And skills is a demand-led system, so employers sort of signal to the skill system that they need skills, they need training when they need to recruit. So where you've got things like wind, solar, nuclear, those kind of big boys, that they're already established. They have their apprenticeships, they have their training. The provider network is suitably qualified and capable to be able to deliver that training. But when you come to some of these new technologies, hydrogen, carbon capture, for example, or even those that are rising in their sort of strategic importance, things like biomethane, biogases, that's not quite the case. And where you have nascent industries that are small, they don't signal to the skills system to start developing curriculum, understanding what knowledge needs to go into training courses and things like that. Mm-hmm. So that's a major part of my work, is trying to get ahead of the game, because if we wait until the workforce is being recruited, we are too late. It takes too long to develop curriculum in order to make sure that the workforce has the skills that it needs. So at the moment, we have some government funding to pilot hydrogen and carbon capture skills accelerator. And what that is doing is working with employers to identify the occupations that are going to be impacted by the use of hydrogen or by carbon capture technology, and then mapping those to a framework, developing a list of competency statements, knowledge statements, and then mapping exactly what knowledge each of those occupations needs to acquire. And that then in turn will become a single source of truth for the provider system to be able to understand what needs to go into their training courses, but also for employers to understand what skills they need to recruit in or train into their existing workforce as well. And all of this goes in front of the regulator as well. So the regulator is involved in this piece of work because, of course, when you're working with hydrogen or carbon capture, there are quite distinct health and safety implications of doing that. So those that are going to be working in those environments need to be able to assure the regulator that they are competent and safe, or their organizations need to be able to assure the regulator that they're competent and safe. So it's about understanding what knowledge needs to be acquired, working with employers to map those to a framework, and then supporting the provider network to deliver or develop curriculum that can support that. But not only that, where it's new technologies, you don't have the capacity and capability amongst the provider network to be able to deliver those training courses effectively. So, for example, in construction, you'll get a lot of throughput from people coming out of that industry and into training providers, giving back to the next generation. They've got that knowledge to be able to deliver really good training. Where you've got new technologies, by definition, that doesn't exist within the workforce already. So what we need to do also is to create that capacity in the provider network so they can deliver really good, competent trainees from the curriculum.
Okay, thank you, Jude. That was very, very interesting, and thank you. I'm sure the listeners will find it very interesting insight into your sector. So just thank you so much for joining us today. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.